Welcome to a football show Thursday edition. That is Nick Suss of the Tennessee, and I am Braden Gall. And this is our new time slot on Thursdays, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. And because you don't have to rush over to the facility to get a bunch of conversations with the coordinators before practice, and PK doesn't have to do that on Mondays, we are going to have a new schedule, of course, in the offseason. A football show Monday edition with Paul Karski back to 1 o'clock like it used to be when we launched the show a couple of years ago. And Nick and I will be here at 10 o'clock on Thursdays. That lines up with the gold standard. If you want to listen to Preds conversations between myself and Emma Lingen at 10 o'clock on Wednesday mornings. So you're going to get, of course, Predators and Titans content on Wednesday and Thursday. The Hot Read podcast and PK podcast and all the other shows still available at the appropriate times. Lots of stuff to do today, Nick, as illegal tampering, legal tampering, sort of free agency starts, I guess, on like Monday, and then like on Wednesday it actually becomes, and turns into actual free agency, 3 o'clock Central Standard God's time on Wednesday. So we got a lot of stuff to get to. Reports about Javon Holland and spending big on free agents and quarterbacks, and teams are cutting players, and all kinds of stuff is happening post combine. We also had a chance to tour the new Titans Stadium this past Monday. I've got a quick little video for you guys. We're going to show you what it looks like from the inside. You're going to hear from Burke Nihill as well as Kevin McGrath, sort of one of the VPs of the site and the management there. So a lot of stuff to do. Quarterback conversation as well, Nick. Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. If you want to get involved, thumbs up, notifications turned on, all that good stuff. D Good says, I think this show should be called Kinda Sus. Whatever's happening in Nick's house is also sus right now.
Yeah, sorry if you guys are hearing a little bit of background noise, but first person to ever make that joke, D Good. Congrats on improving on a very, very used meme format.
He did put it in quotes. He did.
I've always been partial to analysis, but that does not look good in print. It sounds good. You write it down, it doesn't look very good.
Anal sus?
Yeah, it doesn't look as good. It's an Arrested Development joke in waiting. But we can tinker with names of the show if you want branding.
Yeah, well, of course you'd have a good so my 6-year-old came home, I don't know, this was like 8 months ago, and I do another show called Pod Bless Nashville, where we had Burke Nihill on for about 40 minutes a couple of weeks ago. It's about news and politics here in Nashville, and he has, my co-host Jamie Holland has 2 children that are like 14 and 16, and so he speaks a different language. And trust me, this has a story here. I assumed I had years to go before I had to learn this new language that the young children are speaking in order to keep their conversations private from said parents, i.e. me. And my 6-year-old, though, unfortunately came home a couple of months ago, and like I did something in the house, and she looks at me and she goes, Dad, that's so sus. And I was like, how do you know what that means? You are 6 years old and in first grade. What are you talking about?
I don't know. I can talk about this in a PG-13 way that will make you laugh. But if you want to talk about the young ones accidentally influencing us, I made a total JT Runke joke yesterday and had to tell him that he's ruined me. He's absolutely ruined me.
Oh, no. What happened?
It's exactly what you think it is. All the jokes that we were picking on him for at the Combine, I instinctively made one. Again, keeping it PG-13. But the young kids.
Why 13? Why PG-13? It's okay.
Because I have journalistic standards to pretend I uphold.
Oh, yeah, yes, of course. Oh, yes, that's sure. We had to put JT in the trunkie.
We did.
In Indianapolis. But he fit in there quite well. He's not. He wouldn't have he would have a vertical leap, maybe better than James Pierce, but I'm not exactly sure. So anyway, lots of stuff to get to today. We've got comments and we've got questions. We've got the stadium tour we're going to talk about a little bit later on. Really interesting stuff, actually. I am a total nerd when it comes to construction sites. I feel like all the little facts and figures are right up your alley as well, like 19,000 tons of steel or whatever. I think that's some stuff that you probably nerd out on as well.
Yeah, I think I reported something similar about that, of how much steel they used back in October, November. It is very fun to geek out on this stuff.
Yeah, so I've got videos for you guys, so you actually be able to see inside of it, and then you'll hear from a couple of folks that are a part of that. We're going to talk quarterbacks here in just a minute, but I just wanted to talk broadly with you. Tennessean.com, by the way, go check it out. You sort of have a free agent target for every position. I love working with people where I write down names that I want to talk about on a show with them. And then I go, because I want to create my own, I want to have my own perception, and I want to settle on things independently. Free thought, Nick Suss. And then I go read their work, whether it's you or Paul or, whoever, and I see some of the same names. I said, boom, those are the ones we're talking about. So I did appreciate that. Go check it out, Tennessean.com. Also, as I mentioned, go buy booze. You young kids, not drinking anymore. Go drink more. Because we talked about this in Indianapolis. A couple of beverages is a great social lubricant and is actually good for you to be out in social settings. And I realize that it's not super healthy to binge drink all the time, but a couple of beverages, it makes you better to be around. It makes everybody better to be around.
Let's do a quick plug real quick. My mic stand right now is literally a bottle of wine. Guess what kind of wine it is?
Josh.
I was talking more the style, not the brand, but it is not Josh.
Cabernet Sauvignon. I don't know. What kind of wine are you?
It's a Sauvignon Blanc. It was gifted to us, and it is tall enough to be my mic stand. So I am just balancing a microphone on the bottle of wine.
How is it on the bottle of wine? Like on a round bottle of wine? It's not on the box of wine? Like, what are we doing here? Oh no, that was a bad.
It was just bounced like that.
Oh my God. It's literally in the. I hope everybody watched that. That was fantastic. Peter and Eddie and D Good, we'll get to your questions here in just a second. Okay. Oh, go drink more, young folks. But again, not too much. But especially when you're young and your body's healthy. We had a conversation about this in Indianapolis about all the old folk did, me and PK, about our kids and like how none of them are going to drink, which is totally okay with me as a parent. But all you out there in society, you need to have at least a beverage or two on Friday nights and socially lubricate yourself so that you actually learn about interacting with other humans. Look each other in the eye. Now get off my porch and, touch some grass. Okay. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Wednesday through Sundays. Fantastic stuff. The official barbecue of the Houston Oilers. All right. So Jake says I'm waiting to have a rum. Okay. I like that. All right. Javon Holland.
Sure.
Let's start there, and then we'll get to some other names. I was going to ask you big picture strategy, but now I'm into Javon Holland. Carolina, Tennessee reportedly are the two teams that are interested in this guy. This is a big ticket item here. I don't see him listed in many top 10s in terms of free agents, whatever that might mean. I think he's 15th according to NFL.com, their official ranking that I'm looking at right now. 25 years old, very good player. Is that the position you want them to go spend big on when there's some pretty good quality safety prospects in the second, third, fourth round of the draft?
For me, it's less about the position and more about the price tag. I kind of came into this process operating under the assumption that the Titans aren't going to spend more than $10 million a year on anybody, with the exception of potentially if they get a quarterback. Obviously, that changes things. But I don't know. With Holland, hearing that number of I think it's 15 mil a year is what Cameron Wolf is reporting. Yeah. That seems a little bit steep for. I don't know. I was expecting they can go 10 to 12 on a guard, given that that's a position that you can usually find some talent in free agency. I was thinking they might go in the 5 to 10 range if they can find a starting safety or a starting right tackle or a number 2 receiver or some of these things where you can kind of spend a little bit in free agency. Big picture plans. I think I said this on last week's show, but I'll reiterate here. My read and my educated guess based on what the Titans are saying on the record and off the record is there are 5 positions that they want to draft and everything else they're kind of willing to cobble together. And they want to draft and develop those 5 key positions of quarterback, receiver, offensive tackle, edge rusher, and cornerback.
Are you saying that writ large, not necessarily this draft or this class, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying broadly, I think that when they talk about draft and develop and when they talk about plugging holes via free agency, their goal is to get to a point where they need maybe 1 or 2 free agents a year. Like the goal is to not have to rely on free agency to build. But when they do rely on free agency to build, they talk about doing things like signing Tony Pollard and signing Sebastian Joseph Day, which are 2 people that when I sat down with Brinker last week, he brought up, look, those are the types of investments that work. They're not premium dollar amounts. They're at positions where usually there is a glut of talent in free agency, and you can go out and get better with these kinds of players. So if that is the model, if that's the philosophy, going and getting Holland for 3 or 4 year contract, 15 a year, so you're looking $60-ish million, doesn't necessarily jive with the strategy I thought they would take. That doesn't mean they're going to take the strategy I expect. I mean, everything can go differently. And if you think Holland is this huge underserved asset who's worth more than you'd have to pay for him, go get him. Like, I've said this on the show before, but there was an analytics study done a couple of years ago where they pulled, I think, 30 analytics staffers from across the NFL and asked the question, what position do we know the most about? What position do we know the least about? And safety was by far the most common answer for position we know the least about. It is a very difficult position to quantify analytically. It's a very difficult position to quantify statistically. Like, how do you judge the passer rating against on a safety when if somebody's throwing against a safety, something bad has already happened? Like, their whole job is to make sure that they don't have a job. So I mean, it's very difficult.
It's in the name.
Yeah. So when you have a situation like this, I am not anti going and getting Javon Holland. I would just be a little bit surprised based on the selectiveness and the discipline that they're preaching. And maybe selectiveness means we want the number one guy, but we don't want number two. And we're only going to get somebody at this price range if it's the top guy. Like, there's a way to rationalize, justify all of this, but I would say a little bit surprised to hear that this is a top target.
I was too. I was too. I because one of the names that's on this list, and there's so many big names that have been cut or are going to be cut in the next couple days, or coming up in the next few days. The number one name on your sort of target list, I guess if that's what you want to call it, and that I had already written down, is Patrick McCarry, the guard from Baltimore. I really liked him and his price point and his position. And to your point, and this is certainly the free agency and the draft runs parallel, but they run together. Obviously, what you're talking about, and I think we talked about it last week, and we heard Borgonzi and Callahan talk about it and explain it a little bit, is that there is a horizontal and vertical big board for the draft, just like, and there's one for free agency as well, which is you don't just automatically go to number two. So I do think McCarry, that if you can get him for $10 million a year, to your point, that's a value. That's a position where you can get much better at a lower price point. Jake says go grab Holland and Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton would be great, especially if they decide to cut Kenneth Murray, which is possible considering the injury and the cost and the age. So Bolton would be fantastic. I'm a huge fan of him. I liked him at college at Missouri. I've just been a fan of how quality of a player he is. I don't know if what his price point's going to be. Is he better than Patrick Queen? I don't know, who was the big name target last year, of course, on the free agent market. But linebacker, safety are generally, the Green Bay. My favorite team, the Green Bay Packers, went and signed Xavier McKinney like right out of the gate last year. I thought, man, I don't know about this. Really talented player, much like Holland, ended up being one of the best free agent signings in the entire NFL last year. So you could still pay big for one of those guys and get a lot of value. And it is a position of need. There's no question about that. So if you're talking about drafting more premium positions, quarterback, edge, receiver in the draft, or even offensive tackle, which would technically be a premium position, I mean, the value is going to be at running back, linebacker, tight end, safety. Those are the positions where you can get value both in the draft and in free agency.
Yeah, it's almost as if the positions that are in the middle of the field versus the positions that are on the edge of the field have different value. We've seen it happen. But I think, who is it? Jake asking guys you want brought back. Is it better to start with guys we bringing back or guys that want to target? How do you want to
Sure. Let's go with guys bringing back, because that will sort of set the table for who you want to target, which then sets the table for who you draft. Because quarterback, we're going to talk about quarterback today. But quarterback, I'm coming around on if they don't draft him number one or top 3 or 5 or 6 or whatever, that there's a chance they don't draft one at all because they have one signed in free agency. So we'll get to that. Let's start with who you want them to bring back.
I did all 30 free agents tier categories earlier this week, Tennessean.com, if you want to check it out. And I think I had definitely bring them back grades on maybe 3 people. I think it was Sebastian Joseph Day, Ryan Stonehouse, who's restricted, and then Justin Hardy, just as a special teamer who completely transformed the unit when he got there last year. There's a lot of guys who I had in the keep your options open or make an offer and see what they say kind of camps. Guys like Nick Westbrook-Akina, guys like Quandre Diggs, guys like Nick Folk, who for whatever reason you could see them seeking out a bigger offer than what the Titans would give. With Joseph Day, I think somebody said it earlier in the chat of just he's a guy that he was so versatile, so valuable for this team last year. And there's not a lot of depth at that position on this roster or in free agency at large. There's a lot of depth at defensive tackle in the draft. So if that's a position that you want to prioritize, if you get extra draft picks, you can prioritize it there. But it's tough to foresee the Titans committing another top 3 round draft pick to a defensive tackle after doing that last year, and you already have Jeffrey Simmons. It would be a bit of a luxury with how many holes they have across the roster to do that again. So bringing back Joseph Day makes a ton of sense. Stonehouse, I feel like we don't really need to explain. You bring back the guy. And then Hardy, I can justify it, but I think anyone who watched this team last year can kind of understand how important it was to have somebody who actually was a special team specialist. Ed asks about Radens. I had him in the make an offer camp, just like Westbrook-Akina and Quandre and stuff. Keep tabs on him. If you can go get Makari or Kevin Zeitler or some of these guys that are upgrades, pay for it. Like, you have to spend the money. At a certain point, you can't go into the season with $50 million in salary cap space. You have to spend the money somehow. That's a position where I think it's justifiable to spend the money. But if Dylan Radens comes back, totally not a problem.
Yeah, there's names out there that are worse. Is where we're at. 23.8 million increase in the salary cap should be 279 million. That gives the Titans about 50 million in space. So you have Sebastian Justin Day, Ryan Stonehouse, Justin Hardy coming back. You got NWI, Quandre Diggs, Nick Folk. You've got both Gibbons and Gifford as make an offer from I'm assuming depth and special team standpoint. Baker, Daryl Baker, as a make an offer guy. You got Morgan Cox on special teams along with Nick Folk and Stonehouse, and then Dylan Radens. Did I miss anybody on make an offer? See what you can do.
I think that's it. There were some guys that are kind of teetering between make an offer and kind of like keep your options open, hear them out. I think there's some guys that you think about, you listen to, but it's really tough at a certain point. This team went 3-14. If you're bringing back too many pieces from last year, you're rebuilding a team that went 3-14. So it's easy to commodify the people you're used to, but let's remember you're coming from a point of the people you're used to have gotten worse 3 consecutive seasons of 20. Yeah, the last 3 years, worst record each season. So bring back the core nucleus. You're not bringing back the best.
Well, and this Coach Will's question kind of speaks to the larger strategy, which I think you do have to consider here. I think he says, I think quarterback at 1 became a real possibility due to the lack of top 100 picks. I expect a little bit more free agent spending this year just to solve some of those immediate holes. And a lot of the names you put on your sort of target list, a lot of them are small potatoes. It's nibbling around the edges. It's sort of a John Robinson year 1 kind of thing. Even some Rand Carthon year 1 where he went and got, Al Shair and Arden Key and Daniel Brunskill. And it's a lot of sort of small stakes names to fill in depth pieces at some particular positions.
Sure. And so go ahead.
Well, no, that's go for it. I was going to set you up.
I can plug, I think you were setting it up, what I wrote based off of the Brinker interview with the Washington Commanders. Brinker told me, volunteered this, that there were 3 teams that he's kind of studied that are outside the Green Bay way. We've heard so much about the core principles and doing it the Packer way, the Ron Wolf way, the Ted Thompson way. But he also told me 3 things that he's studied since taking over have been what Washington did last year, what Detroit did in 2021 when Brad Holmes took over, and what Buffalo did when Brandon Beane took over in 2017. Now, the Brandon Beane one is strange because he was a May hire for a GM instead of a January hire. So he had a post-draft situation. But something that kind of unified all 3 of those teams is these are historically downtrodden franchises that took big swings that were controversial at the time. So you look back to 2017 Buffalo. Some of Brandon Beane's first orders of business, he traded Sammy Watkins, he traded Marcel Darius, he traded Reggie Ragland. He went in and I think there's one other I was missing, maybe Jordan Poyer, one of the safeties, traded a lot of key players to accumulate draft picks to go and build forward. Also, the Patrick Mahomes trade happened before him, but they did trade back to acquire extra first round picks for his first year, and they got Josh Allen, and they're happy and they're doing fine.
Right.
They're great.
Which speaks to a previous conversation about if you're not going to get a quarterback now, when can you?
Yeah.
See Buffalo Bills. So go ahead.
So then the second one, Brad Holmes had been on the job fewer than 30 days when he traded away the best quarterback in Detroit Lions history. And that Matthew Stafford trade, I think everybody in the moment kind of said, "Oh, Lions, oh, what are you doing here, man?" And it has worked out great for both teams. I would still make the argument that the Los Angeles Rams have won the trade so far because they have a Super Bowl ring. But I don't think any of us would be surprised if the Detroit Lions win a Super Bowl.
Win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't think any of us would be surprised.
One of the rare trades where like the core pieces become a major part of two championship teams. It's like unheard of in sports.
And then the third one, Washington, and I wrote about this last year. They signed 26 free agents. 19 of those 26 free agents were signed on 1-year deals. So that means they only signed 7 players for longer term than 1 season. And I think the only person that they signed to more than 10 a year might have been Frankie Louvu. There was one contract that was like 10.6 a year or something like that. But so they went out and spent something like $177 million on 26 players. And those 26 players, if you use the approximate value stat from Pro Football Reference, were equal in value to the Titans' 16 best players last year. Just period. Not free agent signings, not draft picks, just the Titans' 16 best players, period. And they did it for a price tag that was about $9 million less than what the Titans paid for Ridley, Snead, and Murray.
Yikes.
Like just 3 players.
Yes.
So it's the thing of, this is what the Titans are looking at. You have some teams that took some real strange risks, and they have all, so far, paid off for these teams. None of these teams went out and did the conventional thing. So that's kind of where I'm at with, I don't expect the Titans to just play chalk here and sign Darnold and then trade back to 3 and get Abdul Carter and just like the thing that everybody's like, that's what's going to happen. It's always going to happen.
Okay. So here, first observation, based on the story, go read it, by the way. It's excellent stuff. First observation is they all 3 of those examples, they hit on all the draft capital.
Sure. The
Lions hit on almost every pick. The Commanders last year, that is one of the best draft classes you will ever see. And Buffalo continued, like, again, they traded away Patrick Mahomes and got a guy almost as good. Like that's how well they hit on their picks. So that's number one. You got to hit on the picks no matter what the strategy is. That goes without saying. I want you to tell me what you think those examples would be then. If you're talking, let's start with the draft strategy on this. I know we're kind of all over the place here. But again, that's what happens when you drink beverages at Sinkers and you go eat meat at Shotgun Willie's. What would that look like if you're just talking draft strategy? Is that to me, my first thought, just let's kind of explore the studio space here. There's your Saturday Night Live reference for the for the night. Number one, it's taking Shador Sanders at number 1, or Cam Ward, I guess, but like outside the box is Sanders. To me, the second thing that comes to mind is like trading to 18 or 21, trading way back, which I have been very interested in the entire time. You're giving up certain obvious things for a bunch of other things. 18, 21, 24, whatever it might be. 12 was always where I thought the number would end up because Dallas has already expressed interest potentially in trading up, in theory. What else could it be? What else would a big unconventional big swing look like for the Titans?
I think the word you're using wrong there is big, because the unconventional swing might be a very, very small swing, which would be, hey, you got Will Levis.
Okay.
Like patience. It's not going to make anybody excited. But let's be real. The unconventional swing here is everybody is operating under the expectation that you have the number 1 pick. The time is now. I don't necessarily know if the time has to be now. People don't have to subscribe to linearity. And this is me not talking out of a position of authority. This is me talking out of a position of like 50-60% speculation. But like, the more I am looking at what's happening, the more I think the Titans quarterback next year is either Cam Ward or somebody that is not going to make fans happy. Like, we can pivot to Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. I can rank these guys.
Sam Darnold is not going to be the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. It's not happening.
It's
not happening.
But
the fact that it takes over our conversation in social and radio is frustrating to me this week.
Yeah, but
he's not. First of all, he's not that worth the money. He's just not.
He's a guy who can probably win you games next year. But we can have serious conversations about if the Titans' objective is to win games in 2025 or is to win Super Bowls in 28, 29, 30. But
all right. Joe says if you don't trade back or draft a quarterback, you're not a serious franchise. Is that fair?
Oh, yes. I would say that the only two options I think are plausible at this point are draft Cam Ward or trade back. I agree. I will stand on this ideal for up until April of if you pick Abdul Carter at 1, you've probably made a mistake.
Yep.
Not because he's a bad player. Like, I think Abdul Carter is going to be a very good player.
It's not the value of the spot.
It's just he's not a player that should go number 1 overall.
Franchises have assets. Everything is an asset. A draft pick is an asset. Cap space is an asset. Players are assets. Coaches are assets. Everything is an asset. And you have to maximize those assets to be successful and to win. Yeah. And using the number 1 pick to draft Abdul Carter, or I would argue using $28 to $35 million on Sam Darnold is not maximizing your assets. Now, the cap money and the money in the space, while it does carry over, it's not really as valuable, right? It's just Amy's money. It's not a big deal.
If you want to,
the draft capital is a finite. It's what is it? Fungible? I don't know what the right word is.
Zach's comment right there. If you want to talk about SEC for like 4 seconds, real quick, wanting Justin Fields and Travis Hunter. If you want Justin Fields, wait till 2026. There's this guy named Lenoris Sellers who I think you're going to fall in love with. This dude is fun to watch.
Who's even bigger and stronger than Justin Fields.
He's shaped like Cam Newton, except big goggles.
And throws like Justin Fields.
Yeah. I think you're going to fall in love with this guy.
He's fun. He's a fun guy to watch.
Very, very fun. But that's not to say he's going to be the number 1 quarterback next year. There's a ton of quarterbacks next year. You're going to be in a position.
Drew Aller. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Nussmeier and Levin.
I think Nussmeier has a chance to be pick 8 and be, and this is going to sound crazy, but like a JJ McCarthy type of player. He's going to be, I think he's going to physically, he's going to look and walk and talk and act like JJ McCarthy. He's got a very good arm and a pro background with a pro coach father.
But
I think Nussmeier's a good pick.
All of this future quarterback talk does lead me to say, I can talk myself into Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers for 1 year.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's absolutely something the Titans should be looking for, is a short-term investment on a guy we all kind of just put our heads down when Derek Carr didn't become available because he was the guy everybody accepted. If somebody's going to be a 1-year deal, it'll be Derek Carr. But if Kirk Cousins comes available, you got Russell Wilson, you got Aaron Rodgers, you got guys who, if you are willing to try it for 1 year, that is a perfect bridge. Then you have your second tier of bridge guys that Brissett and Garoppolo and Drew Lock.
You like Garoppolo, don't you?
I don't dislike Garoppolo. He's a guy who, if we're talking about the lowest threshold of processing and accuracy, he can do that. He's a guy who does the thing you want to do as you can kind of move through it. The Rams have expressed interest in bringing him back, but nevertheless, a guy that you can get and start for a year. Flacco's available. There's Carson Wentz, probably not him, but there's guys available.
TMZ would have a field day with Garoppolo and Levis in Nashville dating. Who fits the offense best is a fascinating question, because I do think, to your point about processing and accuracy, this is where I do think the only thing Rodgers can do at 41 years old is probably stand in the pocket and process. That's the only thing he knows how to do. I think Kirk Cousins is another option as well. He's going to get cut with a post June 1st designation here in the next week, because I think they save $10 million if they cut him before the 17th. So they're going to probably do that. If you give me, the Sam Darnold conversation is out of control. If you told me you can get Rodgers or Wilson or Fields and have them compete, Cousins, have them compete with Levis, because I've had this weird feeling, and I maybe haven't said it out loud clearly enough, that I have this strange feeling that Levis is going to start games next year for the Titans. I don't know how many, but he's going to start games for the Titans next year. I don't know why either. Like, I don't know if it's an injury or if he starts as the starter and then the backup comes in, or I don't know why, and I don't know how many. But I feel like Will Levis is going to start like 3 to 5 games for this team next year. And to your point, Titans fans will not be happy with Rodgers and Levis, but that's not the point. The point is to build a franchise to win a Super Bowl. And you can't, I don't think you can solve this problem unless the only way you can solve this problem is if you believe Cam Ward is Patrick Mahomes or something close to that. And if you think that's the case, then you cannot pass on him. Looking at you, Justin Graver, who's obsessed with this guy out there in the social media sphere. Every time I see a retweet, it's just a pro Cam Ward tweet. I'm not saying he's not going to be great, but that you have to believe that. And if you believe that he is that guy, that you take him. After that, there's not a solution. There is not a long-term solution at this position. You have to be willing to be patient until next year, when Eddie points out a very, very interesting draft class of quarterbacks. Again, Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik at Clemson has grown a ton in the last 2 years. Big-time 5-star recruit. Totally is delivering on his
vibes. A lot of Bo Nix vibes.
Well,
just like from the growth trajectory of 5-star that got written off and is coming back of.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the career arc is absolutely the same. The story arc for sure. I was thinking more like actual physical skills. He mentioned Sam Levitt at Arizona State. I don't know how much of a pro prospect he is. Lenore Sella, South Carolina. Nico at Tennessee. Nico's got a long way to go in his career arc. Actually, he's like at the end of the first chapter of the Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Like starting as a freshman at Auburn. This is like Nico started as not great at Tennessee. Arch Manning, of course, probably number 1 if he comes out. There is a really good class of quarterbacks next year. You don't have to take Cam Ward. But if you do not take him, you need something short-term because there is no long-term answer. There's not. You're not going to stumble on Jimmy Garoppolo, who's going to turn into Sam Darnold from last year. It's just not going to happen. So
no, if you're looking for somebody who could turn into what Sam Darnold was last year, that's where guys like Trey Lance and Zach Wilson re-enter the chat. But if you're going and getting Trey Lance or Zach Wilson, you have to move on from Levis because you've already got one of those guys.
I know Levis. Why do that? Why not just shoot with Levis?
Yeah, Levis is in the same camp there. But I think who was it? Coach Wills, who had the kind of key comment here about patience and rebuilding and when it makes sense. Yes, I believe that the people who are making the decisions right now are operating under that process. Assumption is probably the wrong word, but I do believe that the decisions are being made based on people who want to do this long term, not who are trying to do it quick to prove they can do it long term. They're making the decisions based on the long term future, and if they get fired for it, they get fired for it. This is believing in the viability of a long term process more than it is making decisions to earn the right to a long term process.
There you go, Joe. With these quarterback options remaining, is Callie a dead man walking? That is what you're talking about.
That comes down to these people's ability to coach the football team. The previous regime, and this is nothing against Ran Carthon, it's just the strategy he grew up in. Ran definitely grew up around coaches who said, go get me these players. I don't think that the people in place now are necessarily doing the I do the bidding of the coach thing so much. There's probably collaboration, but there's also probably I'm the GM. I go get the players, coach them.
I shop for the groceries. You cook them.
So Callie is not a dead man walking so much as Callie's got to coach him. They're going to get him players. Callie's got to coach him. And if the players aren't very good, then they've set him up in a tough situation. But that doesn't mean he's fired.
And if Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi are very good at their jobs, they will understand and see what Brian Callahan did or did not bring to the table.
Yeah.
They will know the difference. And it's not necessarily, this is what's going to be hard for fans. It may not necessarily be tied to wins and losses or quarterback play. If they see an entire team get better after the coaching staff, we need to talk about Mike McCoy, for example, because I really like the experience that is now going to be on this coaching staff around Brian Callahan. He's got his father. He went and got Fossil for special teams, and he went and got a very experienced veteran quarterback, offensive guy in Mike McCoy. That if Brinker and Borgonzi are good at their jobs, they will know how to properly evaluate Brian Callahan. We don't have they will know that they gave him Zach Wilson or Will Levis to work with. Like they understand what's going on. Eddie says Braden is definitely a Green Bay fan. He has a less toxic view of Aaron Rodgers on the Titans than other members of the 440 network. Sounds like Nick is equal. I am not pro Aaron Rodgers because of my Green Bay fandom. I'm largely apathetic to Aaron Rodgers. Like when he was wearing a Green Bay uniform, I thought he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's not, and I still think he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but he's 41 and he's old as shit. So
can I, if
Weird,
I'm allowed to wax poetic for 30 seconds here,
if
I were to rank the 3 best quarterbacks I have ever watched, either in person or with my own eyes, but luckily I've seen all 3 of them in person, it would be some combination of Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and Peyton Manning. Like I have him in that tier. I do not have Tom Brady in that tier. I do have Aaron Rodgers in that tier. So like
Aaron Rodgers is I think he is the most talented thrower of football that's ever lived.
Agree. And so there's this thing that one of my friends loves to say all the time, that nobody has ruined a sport for the youth quite like Stephen Curry has. Of like now, if you go and watch middle school basketball, it's just a bunch of people chucking up 32 footers because they want to be like Steph Curry. Aaron Rodgers kind of has that effect for young quarterbacks of just like, oh, I'll just stand back here for 7-8 seconds at a time and keep backpedaling, and my arm talent's going to take advantage of it. That Aaron Rodgers effect, a little.
Where
different.
do you think this is? What I think is the most. I think this is the most underrated professional sports conversation in America. Patrick Mahomes patterns his game after Aaron Rodgers. Patrick Mahomes is the same size, the same shape, has the same skills, is better athletically than anyone realizes, and has played the game exactly like Aaron Rodgers his entire life. Aaron Rodgers was Mahomes before Mahomes was Mahomes. Mahomes just has Andy Reid and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
It's just way better around him. Rodgers got one with McCarthy, but he didn't get to. If he had LaFleur the entire time with that system, I think he would have gotten another one. But I am amazed we do not have more like, oh, who's the Mahomes comp? And like, oh, he's one of one. I'm like, no, he's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, he's Aaron Rodgers.
He's 6'2", 215, who can run around and has a huge arm, who can throw off platform all the time. Same guy.
He's Aaron Rodgers with Brett Favre's coach. Like
yes,
he's Aaron Rodgers encouraged to be a little bit more like Brett Favre. And that's
true.
That's really, really good. But we can also say the same of like, I remember this probably 8 to 10 years ago. I would have this conversation with some friends before I covered the NFL of, we call it the last 2 minutes test. Of can you determine who the best quarterback in the league is based off of your team has the lead, but the other team has the ball with 2 minutes left? What quarterback do you absolutely not want to see? And every time Russell Wilson was on my list of just like, I don't want to see Russell. Like Rodgers was on the list, Andrew Luck was on the list, and Russell Wilson. Like that was my 3 in that era. And so I still think Russell Wilson has that killer mentality. If we saw this last year with Pittsburgh of, you get him in a game, dude can still ball. Dude can still compete.
You have to be weird to be that good. Tom Brady is weird. Andrew Luck, weird as shit. Like these guys are weird, and for in very different ways, right? Like Russell Wilson's got this like narcissism thing. He's just weird. He's just a weird guy. Aaron Rodgers is super freaking weird. Mahomes is odd. He's not as weird, but he's odd. I think Peyton is odd, but not as weird. Tom Brady is he's a weirdo. These guys are weird. You have to be weird to be that good at something like this. I don't know. And to want to stand in the pocket for 15 years or 16 years in the NFL.
So all of this is to say, no, JT, no.
Give me Mac Jones. That's Paul Kaharski is on the Mac Jones, Jameis Winston thing. And I'm not sure. I don't think that's what he's suggesting we do or the Titans do, but
Jameis is an incredible way to get everybody fired. If you are trying to get people fired, be like, hey, you got to keep the turnovers down this year. We went and got you Jameis.
I'm here for content, Nick. Okay. Jameis is here for Shador Sanders, Jameis Winston, top 2 content choices.
True. Aaron Rodgers, a lot of content, maybe not fun content, but that'd be high degree of content.
Yeah. There's a lot of comments here. All right, let's see. Team Ramrod. One of the first guys Cam Ward mentioned when asked who he models his game after was Aaron Rodgers. I actually don't disagree with that. Similar size, a little less accurate, no question, as are all humans when it comes to throwing a football. It seems like people are coming around. I know JT and Stoney, I guess, are against Aaron Rodgers. I don't understand that element. Again, I don't think you're trying to win the Super Bowl this year. You are trying to fill the void at the position for a short period of time, namely until next year. Cousins, I think if you could do Cousins with Will Levis, and then get to the quarterback draft next year, I think that's a pretty solid strategy. I don't mind Russell Wilson. I don't mind Aaron Rodgers. I don't want $30 million over 3 years or $90 million over 3 years for Sam Darnold. I think that's a bad move. I don't think it makes any sense for the team.
And then to the Russell Wilson sack magnet thing, I think Braden might have been the one who brought it up last, but the idea of there's 3 bad things that can happen to a quarterback, and good ones are going to always have to choose. Are you going to take sacks? Are you going to throw interceptions? Or are you going to have a low completion percentage? Russell Wilson takes the sacks. Aaron Rodgers throws the ball away. Like, they're just, you have your foibles. He's a bit of a sack machine, but if he's not turning the ball over, if you only have one of the faults instead of 2 or 3 of the faults, you feel pretty good.
Everybody on this team is totally used to quarterbacks taking sacks too. They won't have to. That won't be a new adjustment for the organization or for the fans. It's totally fine. All right, we've gone a long time here on the quarterback. Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Ed says % chance they have traded the pick before the next airing of this podcast, which will be Monday. I am off next week because of forced family vacation, spring break. So JT's going to fill in. So y'all ridicule JT as much as possible when he's hanging out with PK and with Nick next week. What's the percentage chance? Because that Monday at 1:00 won't quite be to legal tampering period or right around then. Do you think? How about we go Wednesday? And I guess maybe he's referring to you and I talking on Thursday. Maybe that's what he meant. By next Thursday, when you sit down to join the show, what does the Titans quarterback room look like?
I don't know, man. I kind of, and maybe this is just me hoping that we'll get to have a weekend. I kind of have always thought if it's not tomorrow, then it's not for another week or two. It's not going to happen during the tampering period. Like, would it? Like, when every single
trading
thing
the pick? No.
Yeah, maybe that's just over optimism of not wanting to have the busiest work week that anyone's ever had. But like the
while I'm out of town not working, that'd be really bad for the company. So please don't do that, Titans.
The Panthers Bears trade was, I believe, either this day or tomorrow of that season. It was the Thursday or Friday right before the free agency window began. March 10th. I want to say it was March 13th when the window opened. So we're definitely on high alert right now.
We're in the window for sure.
I am afraid to go in my car, but
just turn the notifications on. Do you think that the fact that the Titans wanted to meet with Shedeur and Cam immediately following the combine is an indicator of where they're at with that trade process?
Probably.
Yeah,
nothing is really gained by waiting to see these guys in April. Maybe I guess you can get them after their pro day, but you're going to get them at their pro day either way. So it's probably an indicator, but it's probably not the sole indicator.
Joe says, how about Abdul's foot? I think the take on this that I said I think it was either with you or with PK, the take is Abdul Carter is Abdul, like, he's not getting past 6 or 7. And if you're on the board and you're on the clock at pick 6 or 7, you're taking Abdul Carter. The foot injury does not stop you from taking him at 3 or 6 or 7 long term. And so if you're on the clock at 3 and Abdul Carter's your pick, that's the guy you want, the foot's not going to stop you from taking him, I don't think. And definitely if he falls to 6 or 7, you're absolutely taking him at that point. So
I agree.
I think that's kind of all you need to, like, it's just about, like, we don't know if the medicals matter, but we can analyze what the Titans would do, at least in our opinion. And I don't think they're passing on Abdul Carter at 6 or 7. They're just not. So you may go Travis Hunter at 3 instead of Carter if they're both on the board. That might be what you do, but they could do that anyway, regardless of the foot being healthy or not. So we shall see. Yeah, I agree. Team Ramrod is not making it past 3. I totally agree with that. All right, what about these big names? Do you make anything of these big names outside, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Devontae Adams, Hassan Reddick, Chris Godwin, Stephon Diggs, Christian Kirk, Ronnie Stanley? I like Will Freeze as well. I know he's injured. You might be able to get him as a depreciated asset. That's the guard. I would go get him as well. I think he's really good. Or is it Fries? I don't remember how to say his name.
I thought it was Fries, but I don't know.
I love Jonathan Allen. I don't know if you got the right place for him on the team. Is there any big name that we haven't covered yet in other positions that you think the team should be looking at and targeting and fans should be thinking about through next week?
My 2 priorities would end up being get faster on the outside. Calvin Ridley has plenty of speed, but beyond him, there really wasn't very much speed on this team on the perimeter. So look for some fast receivers, some shifty receivers, some guys who are going to actually change the style of what you can do. I had this weird conclusion watching the playoffs this year that I was watching teams run bubble screens, and I was just like,
I know where you're going here.
What if the Titans did that? Like, I'm not singling out a perfect player. I did write one example in my article, but like there are so many examples of just like go get a 5'9" dude, Elijah Moore or Rondale Moore or
look, these folks in
Zacchaeus or any of these guys.
There you go. Olamide Zacchaeus out of Virginia, played for the Falcons. This is a guy who catches short, quick, processed passes. If you want to, if your quarterback is and your coach want a little bit more, be satisfied with the mundane. Take the checkdowns when the defense gives it to you. Tutu Atwell is not the guy you want to do that. He is fast. He's so small. If you just draft Tez Johnson, then if you want that guy, Olamide Zacchaeus is a guy who could play running back in college football. Like this is a guy who's thicker, more versatile, and was very successful last year. I that's the other name I had written down. It's Patrick McCarry at guard. Olamide Zacchaeus. I could be very interested in Nick Bolton, and I could be very interested in Javon Holland. That would be a total remake of the roster and a lot of your free agent money, honestly.
And then the other type of thing that I personally would like to see them splurge a little bit on, go get a pass rusher who everybody's heard of. It could be a 33-year-old. It could be a 36-year-old. I don't care if it's Jerry Hughes, but Dante Fowler, Emmanuel Agba, go get a guy who has 10 years of proof. Hey, I'm going to get 30 to 40 pressures this year. I'll be your number 2 pass rusher. I will be a veteran presence in this room. There are a ton of those guys on the market. And if Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, those guys are probably going to be the bigger fish. You're probably going to steer clear of those. And I don't think anybody would be surprised to see Joey Bosa go to San Francisco with his brother. But like, go find yourself. There are so many. I think I have the list pulled up here if you bear with me of just like edge rusher types in this draft or in this free agency class.
Yes, there's a ton of them. Josh Sweat, I haven't mentioned him yet. He's a name people have heard of. Dante Fowler, I think, is a really nice like depth piece. You know, I don't think he's a starting answer, but
Matt Judon, DeMarcus Lawrence, Preston Smith, Charles Omenihu, DeMarcus Walker, Marcus Davenport, Jaron Reed, Cleveland Farrell. There's so many options here. Shaq young. Thompson. Farrell's still fairly young. Yeah. 28. Tano Passanio. Just Derek Barnett is available. Azeez Ojulari is probably on the younger side, so is Dayo Odeyingbo. You might have to go bigger on them. Deshaun Hand, probably more of a interior-exterior guy. Shaq Barrett is available. Carl Lawson's available.
So many SEC defensive linemen.
Yeah, so just like get one of those. Get a guy with a track record. I would
Harold
probably
Landry.
I would probably lean toward Dante Fowler of all those guys. But
I like him. Also an SEC defensive line.
Yes. But get somebody like that to just say Arden Key can be rotational if he's still around. Harold Landry can be rotational if he's still around. Going to draft a guy and sign a guy, and these are going to be the pass rushers.
Move back to 6 or 7. Take Michael Williams. Go get Dante Fowler. You definitely don't want look, Wan'Dale Robinson, Khalif Raymond, Tutu Atwell. These are not the guys. They're not it. And somebody asked about Savion Williams or Olamide Zacchaeus. I would much rather have Zacchaeus over Savion Williams. Two totally different players. Savion Williams is like a 6'4" guy. You're probably going to have to draft in like the 3rd round. I don't want that. I don't want that for the team.
Zacchaeus would also be my top priority. But again, Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore are also available for that type of player. More injury prone.
I want Jalen Noel in the 4th or 5th round. That's what I want. Who is, to me, a better, more receiving option than Olamide Zacchaeus and younger. That's the kind of guy you want. You want a guy to catch a ton of passes within 6 yards of the line of scrimmage. That's what you want. And you can get those guys relatively affordably and relatively cheaply. Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Make sure you check out both of those great local, amazing businesses. You young folks, drink more. Okay? I know it sounds weird, but drink more. You're not going. Go socialize with other people your age. Look them in the eyes and have adult communication with them without your cell phone. I know this makes me sound old, but this is a message brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. So go check out Sinkers Beverages, 4-time liquor store of the year, and the best beer fridge in the city. I'm telling you, go in there, check it out, have a good time. My guys over in London are already having some rum cocktails these days. So going to be a lot of fun. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, of course, you guys know the drill, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday, 10 minutes from Nissan Stadium, right there in the heart of in District 7, Madison, right there by Briley Parkway. Super, super easy to get. All right, so here's the thing. We're already a little late here, and I want to talk more about this stuff. This is way more interesting, but the stadium is fascinating here. So I do want to play this video. I had a chance to take the tour on Monday, got a bunch of really cool clips and videos of like the concourse and what the terrace is going to look like, what the seats are going to look like inside the bowl. I know there's other stuff out there, but you're going to hear Burke Nihill talk about a lot of stuff. You're going to hear from Kevin McGrath, who's the VP of the site, I guess, with CAA and Icon Construction. You're going to hear about cost overrun. You're going to hear the phrase GMP, the guaranteed maximum price. Right now, everything on time and on budget. And you're going to hear a lot of other cool stuff as well. And you're going to get to see sort of inside of it because we got to take a tour on Monday. So here's a couple minutes here, a lot of video footage and some commentary from a couple of folks. So go check it out. See, here's our tour on Monday.
Time I came through the building and when the concrete had started to be poured and the bowl was starting to take shape, I was emotional because I mean, even going back to the idea of a renovation and then the possibility of a stadium, what a stadium could look like. You live in the renderings, and we have great designers that have created drones where you can actually kind of see the renderings come to life, but it's all just theoretical.
Presents 108 feet above where we're standing now. That's halfway to where we're going. So as big as this elevation seems, we're halfway there. So the question was, what do we do when there's rain activity or weather events? At the current, there are plenty of areas inside the building undercover that we are working in, hanging ductwork, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. If you look, you can see exterior framing on the building progressing both on the north and the west side. Inside the building, we're progressing with interior framing. So there's a litany of things related to finishes and progress inside the building that we're able to make. Masonry. There's 20,000 square feet of masonry that have gone in place at this point. So
Get you some views out here.
surprisingly, we didn't hit anything underground that we thought may have been there. There were no underground surprises, so that's a really good surprise.
Me too.
Well, we're really pleased to have a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price. And so that gives us a lot of security on the biggest items. We as an organization are trying really hard to just stay committed to this design that we've spent years and years and years thinking through, and we're really proud of, and making sure that we're not just making arbitrary changes. So in our minds, there's always the possibility of things that happen that raise the cost, but we feel like we've done the work on the front end to reduce that as much as possible, and that GMP really gives us a lot of comfort as well.
If there are unforeseen changes in building materials, for instance, or tariffs that were not suspected when we went through the GMP process a year ago, that's really the biggest thing. Our diversity goals, we're sitting right at our target of 25% in diversity and using locally sourced folks on the project. So we're really, really proud of TBA.
And to walk the space, stand in an area and look and start to see this actually come to life. This isn't renderings anymore. This is real. It's coming to our city, and it's thrilling.
All right, there you go. It's coming to our city. A little shout out to Big and Rich there, I feel like, from Burke Nihill. Josh says, who looked the most out of place in construction gear? Buck Rising, unequivocally Buck Rising. So that's definitely the truth there. Look, it's cool, man. I know we can I don't want to get into the politics of sort of like how the stadium bill was passed and, the things that the city wants, and folks who are against the stadium deal who want it to feel like a neighborhood and green space and affordable housing. There's lots of really actually important issues. And outside of that, the city got a pretty good deal for this, and it is going to be spectacular. Like, one of the things about Nissan Stadium is that you come out at the bottom, and then you have to go all the way up to every seat that you want. That's not going to happen. You're going to come out in the middle of the section, and you can go up and down to where your seats are. It's going to be easier. 100% sight lines, which I've noticed at all the major stadiums. I'm sure you noticed this when you're in Atlanta, when I was there like 10 years ago when they opened it recently. You never lose sight of the field anymore. That's such an old thing. It's such an old, it's such an old thing to lose sight of the stadium. Neyland Stadium is like that. The terrace is going to be spectacular. It's going to be family centric. I think they're going to build a stage the size of the Ryman in the east end zone, which is the one facing the interstate, not facing the city. It's going to have a mosh pit. They're going to have locally sourced food in there. They're not, and right now they're controlling the budget, they're controlling the timeline, and they're doing it with sort of like locally sourced and a diverse workforce. I think it's 850 man hours a day on site, and once they close the roof, which I believe will happen in March of 26 or somewhere around there, then they go to like 1,600, 1,700 man hours a day, and it goes real fast after that. So they are 22% of the way done, Nick, right now, which seems crazy because it looks so big already. But they're not even halfway to the height yet, and it's already the same height as Nissan Stadium. The concrete is done. It's going to be all steel from here on out, all the way up, and it's going to be 235 feet, and it's going to dwarf Nissan Stadium, which I don't think people anticipated. That it is going to dwarf Nissan Stadium.
You have sold me. I'll take one. Let's build one. Let's buy one.
I want one.
I want one.
I'm just such a nerd for those sites, man. They're so fun to be on. Yeah.
It's unequivocally a good thing that the Titans are modernizing their stadium. I can't remember who said it. It might have been Burke. It might have been somebody else in the process. But something that's really stuck with me throughout this process was comparing the old Nissan Stadium to like the last great Motorola Razr before everybody started building smartphones. Of like, the old stadium is like the best way you could have possibly done the old way people did stadiums. And then immediately after that, everybody started doing it a different way. And it's like, oh shoot, I'm still using a Razr. Like,
kids are going back to those. They're not drinking and they're using Razrs now again.
Stop.
I think it's more of a StarTech. I think it's more Motorola StarTech. I don't think it's the Razr. I think it's the where it had like a backlit orange screen and like no pictures or whatever.
I had my first cell phone was a Sony Ericsson flip phone that every time you flipped it open, it did a little jingle. And so I kept that on, so I never opened it up in class. Because if I ever needed to text in class, the entire class would just hear boop, ba-doo-doo-doo.
All I need to know about your generation is that you had a cell phone in your classroom. So no, do you remember the motor? Do you remember the StarTech, the StarTech, the little black one that had the battery on the side? It would flip open and then you'd pull up the pull up the little antenna. Had orange. I think it was orange letters and numbers and writing and stuff.
I'm going to sit here. There is no way that cell phones did not exist when you were in high school. They had cell phones in like season 1 of Frasier. Niles was using a cell phone in 1993, man.
So the car phone was first, right, in the mid 80s and the late 80s. There was probably the same like that there was computers. They existed when I was in school, but they weren't in our school.
Okay.
like I got a computer lab like in 4th grade.
Yeah.
I had
computer labs. Yeah.
Kenneth, I had a BlackBerry. I had the skinny one that was like the thin BlackBerry before it got fat, and you had to do was it T9, the texting where you had to do like 3 to get to the C.
When I was in high school, my last friend who still had a BlackBerry, the like space bar key on his keyboard was jammed.
Oh no.
So we fashioned a slingshot and we catapulted it into a brick wall. And the only thing that happened was the space bar got unjammed. The phone was completely fine. He was able to keep using it.
Funny.
We slingshotted a BlackBerry into a brick wall and it was fine. Miss it.
So quickly, it's 94 feet, and I think you saw that in the video. It's 94 feet from Nissan to Nissan Stadium, which is why there will not be any explosives, much to my daughter's chagrin. The 6 and 8-year-old ask me all the time, like, when are they going to blow that one up, Dad? And I'm like, they're not. It's going to be demolished sort of mechanically and meticulously over time, which is a big bummer because I really think they could sell a lot of money, make a lot of money on charity if they wanted to physically dynamite the dollhouses. I think, or turn them into a rage room or something where you could go take a sledgehammer and just smash the dollhouses. I bet you people would pay good money for charity to go smash the dollhouses. It's such a bad stadium. So anyway, the terrace is the thing I think most people are excited about. It's going to be spectacular. It'll be up higher in the 300. I don't think they're calling it 300, but that's what it's going to be. It'll be outdoors, and you'll see it. It'll face south and west towards the city. And it'll be outdoors with trees and stuff. It's going to be very, very cool. Floor to ceiling glass facade that's going to be movable. And The thing about Geodis Park that is so special is how big and wide and fresh and new the concourses feel, and that you never lose sight of the field. And that is, I think, what this is going to be. I think the biggest difference, aside from all the details and the technology, will be the fact that you have space to walk around the concourse and never lose sight of the field. I think that is such a critical piece of development in stadium technology. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm excited about. It's just also cool to see, like the roof is going to be this weird gravitational cable thing that's going to be over the top of this, 40 feet of steel that's going to go up another 100 feet, and 19,000 this and 20,000 that. And it's just fascinating to be there and to walk through it. So I think fans are going to like it. I think it, and frankly, they're going to be charged for it. You folks that are being asked to buy PSLs right now, whoo boy.
I was going to joke that Braden should have a city planning podcast, but he kind of does have a city planning podcast.
Coming up on this week's episode, we're actually going to talk to someone who runs a disabilities organization, and we're going to break down the Metro Council on Tuesday night. That is another show that I do. You can check out Pod Bless Nashville everywhere you get your podcasts. Also brought to you by Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. No, I'm not even kidding about that. All right. Jake says, never seen a game in the U.S., but you get some food and drink and still see the pitch. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I was stunned a couple of years ago when I learned that they do not sell food and drink at English stadiums. That is that's interesting. I guess they probably have them in the luxury suites, but like you can't bring a beer down into your seat because of hooliganism, I would imagine.
I have been saying forever that EPL and the SEC are the same thing.
Yes.
That's the SEC football and EPL soccer are the same thing. They don't sell booze except for to rich people, and everyone goes batshit crazy.
Yeah.
They're the same thing.
Do they have any big oak trees in the UK asking for one person?
Like, who would be the Auburn of the EPL? Would it be like Arsenal? Kind of like never quite gets there and wins the championship. I guess they got one in 2010, I suppose.
I think Arsenal's the LSU, I've heard. I'm trying to think of who Auburn would be.
Alabama is clearly one of the Manchesters.
Yeah.
Like they just buy and buy and buy players and championships. They're just one of the Manchesters.
Every year that I've been invested in the World Cup, something I've genuinely done since I was a kid, is since there's usually 32 teams in the World Cup, I'll find an article. Somebody did a listicle of like every World Cup team as an NFL team this year. And I've just gone to whoever the Titans was. And like, I'm going to root for the Titans of the World Cup this year. And in 2018, it was Croatia, and I got to follow them all the way to the finals.
Dude, Modric is a stud. I love Croatia.
Awesome.
I love Modric. He's awesome. Also, Christian Pulisic of Croatian descent as well. I'm trying to think. Like Tottenham, I feel like Tottenham is like Georgia. Like big corporate, lots of money, the huge stadium, big fan base, centrally located in a big city. And like
Auburn might be Everton.
Ooh. Everton hasn't won the championship though, right? Like,
I guess not.
Do they cheat a lot? Do they cheat? Do they cheat a lot? Do crazy
I'm
shit?
trying to think of who has like better than Little Brother, but is still kind of stuck with the Little Brother vibes.
All right, Manchester United is Alabama. Manchester City is Auburn. That's it.
No,
maybe I know
10
that
years ago.
I know that cities. I know that cities won like five championships in the last few years, or whatever. Tottenham is A&M. Okay, all right, I get on board with that. Who's Chelsea then? Is Chelsea like is Chelsea Georgia? Chelsea could be Georgia. A big corporate.
Are we only allowed to pick SEC teams?
Yes, it's got to be SEC.
Okay, then I don't know.
I mean, in this new round of expansion, there's going to be 4 more teams, and then we'll just have 20 and 20, and we can just do the exercise perfectly.
Absolutely perfect.
All right. Okay. Tennessean.com. Make sure you check them out. Sinkers Beverages. Make sure you check them out. Make sure you check out all the other great shows across the 440 Sports Network. JT and Stoney on a hot read. You got Music City Audible. You got the Paul Karski podcast. Check out paulkarski.com. And make sure you listen to all the other shows that are not about Titans football. We got SEC Football Live. We've got Gold Standard covering the Preds, Club and Country covering Nashville SC, Pod Bless Nashville covering city planning, and a variety of other things. Again, if you didn't hear the interview with Burke Nihill, if you're a Titans fan, that was a couple of weeks ago. I had about 40 minutes with him, so make sure you go check out that. And Lower Broad Hockey Substack, if you want more Preds information. I'm running out of stuff to promote. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue for meat and kids. All you out there, go drink more.
I thought you were just promoting kids. And one last thing, let me promote children. Children. The future.
I need you guys to know how to interact with each other. You have to know how to do this. I saw Nick do it. I saw Nick and JT do it firsthand last week. Okay, you got to be able to do it. A couple of beverages, go out and communicate and interact with each other. Socialize, everybody. It's good for you.
If there is one thing that people can count on me for, it is being able to communicate and socialize, whether or not there are beverages. I can't stop talking.
Well, my wife would tell you the exact same thing about me. So, all right. Also, thanks to everybody in the comment section. Thumbs up, notifications turned on, all that great stuff. Going to be awesome weekend, and going to be a great week of content next week that I will not be a part of. So make sure safe travels to me. And good luck to you being not as busy as possible next week. So otherwise, have a great one, everybody. Good to talk to you guys. Peace and love. I will talk to you in 2 weeks. JT, PK, and Nick are back next week. Have a good one, everybody.